The next version of JavaScript, ECMAScript 2015 or ECMAScript 6 or ES6, whatever you want to call it, has a new concept coming, and yet it's just another way to create objects and to set the prototype. Let's look at classes. Classes in other programming languages are extraordinarily popular. They're a way of defining an object, defining what its methods and properties should be. JavaScript doesn't have classes. However, in the next version it will, but in a different way. So, what will a class look like? A JavaScript class defines an object, just like we have been all along. You have a constructor that acts somewhat like the constructor functions that we've seen, in that you can preset its values. So when I create a new person, in this instance, for example, and I use the new keyword to do this, I can pass first name and last name, and then the this keyword will be set to that new instance that's being created, that new object that's being created. I can also have methods like greet sitting right there inside the class, and it's just available. Now here's the problem. People coming from other programming languages, when they see this class, they think, oh great, this is just like what I'm used to. The difference is that in other programming languages, class is not an object. It's just a definition. It's like a template. It tells you what objects should look like, but you don't actually get an object until you use that new keyword. But JavaScript, even though it's adding the class keyword, still doesn't have classes in that sense, because this is an object in JavaScript. This class person actually is an object that's created, and then you're creating new objects from that object. And that's okay. My fear, though, is that rather than appreciating the differences and the beauty of prototypal inheritance, those who are coming from other programming languages will simply see the class keyword and immediately begin to design object structures the way they do in C# or Java or C++. I think that's a huge mistake. And I also am wary about still having to use the new keyword. It's still an attempt to appease those coming from other languages, and I personally aren't crazy about it. However, it's one of those things. It's in the language. It's definitely better than function constructors, because at least the language would be able to say this is a class, you have to use the new keyword, so the engine can stop you from doing something really silly. But my hope is that if you are learning JavaScript, if you're using JavaScript, you'll stop, just like this class is trying to help you do, and understand what's happening under the hood, and appreciate prototypal inheritance, the simplicity of it, as opposed to trying to mimic some other programming language. Oh, by the way, how do you set the prototype then? Well, that's another new keyword. Let's say that I was creating an informal person, where person is my prototype. I simply use the keyword extends, and that sets the prototype for any of my objects created with this class. It sets essentially that underscore underscore proto underscore underscore property, at least in Chrome. And in my constructor, I can call the keyword super, which simply will call the constructor of the object that is my prototype. So I can pass my initial values down the chain. And then I can override or hide, just like I did with object.create. Make sense? This isn't completely ready at the point of the recording of this particular course, but we will talk in a bit about how you can use these features right now, even if your users are using older browsers, or that these concepts aren't even ready at all in the current browsers. But for now, this is what's coming for creating objects, creating methods and properties on objects and setting their prototype. It's just another syntactical way, another way to type this, another approach, but under the hood, it's all still working the same. In fact, if you read on the internet about classes, you'll often see, for classes in JavaScript, a phrase that it's just syntactic sugar. Well, big word alert. Syntactic sugar is just when you have a different way to type something into your code that doesn't change how it actually works under the hood. We've already seen that function constructors, object.create, are doing the same thing ultimately, essentially. Class in JavaScript is doing just that. It's not changing anything about how the JavaScript engine does things, about how objects and prototypes work under the hood. It's just syntactic sugar, just giving you a different way to type it in your code. But when that code is executed, what's generated by the JavaScript engine is still the same old thing. It's still prototypal inheritance.